Hello and welcome to a new episode of Talking Snooker with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Once again talking about the game we all love.
Hello, everyone. Yes, we are indeed. And we're doing it straight off the back of the latest ranking event winner, although it's a very familiar face that we're seeing lifting a trophy once again.
Couldn't be more familiar, could it, Phil? It's Mark Selby. He's won his 24th ranking event title. Many congratulations to him. I love the time gap, 17 years. And I was thinking, I really remember I was in Ireland and I was in Westport, actually, in a pub. And that was when he came back against Ronnie in the '08 final. I remember it really well. And you never thought it'd be 17 years, but you don't get many gaps between ranking event wins of that long. But of course, the redoubtable Selby, who's having a very good season. Forget his history, forget all his years of success. Right here, right now in 24-25. The player of the season race is interesting, Phil. I won't be getting my votes in early. There are a lot of candidates, Selby's put himself right in that mix. He beat Stephen Maguire, didn't he, as we speak tonight, clinching a 9-6 victory to win the Welsh Open. And got to say about Maguire, great to see him back in the big time. It's been far too long, 5 years since a last ranking final for him. And I think you were pointing out not even a semi since 2021. So hell of an effort from him. So maybe a word from you on both, Phil, but we've got to say Selby, third tournament win this season. One of them less big than the others, but two decent ranking event wins now. You can't keep a good man down.
No, not at all. He's been reliably consistent for so long, hasn't he? He usually wins something every year. And yeah, this is shaping up. It's sort of gone under the radar because the conversation's been so much about Kyron and Judd. But he's picked up these two in the last couple of weeks. And like you say, he's going to be right in that race for the year, which will always come down to the Crucible like it does every year. But, at this stage, we're not too far away from it now. And he's bubbling up beautifully form-wise for that. And he'll be many people's tips when Sheffield comes around. But good stuff from Maguire as well. It is good. I mean, he's a sort of if he's anywhere near a TV match, I will almost certainly be watching. He's sort of blockbuster when he's at his best, and he hasn't been at his best for a while, but he's getting back there, which is good to see. It's good to have him in the mix. As many of these genuinely top players who are capable of winning events being near their best, then that's the bet of the game because you want all these contenders thrashing it out, and we all know how good he is on his day. And really impressive week. I don't even think he necessarily had returned to his peak, so I think it's quite encouraging that he was getting to a final again without being fully back, because the only way is up hopefully from there for him. But yeah, great week for them both, but a better one for Selby for sure.
Yeah, I don't now wish to sound a downbeat note, but I was just thinking, looking at the interview there, I hope I'm wrong, but historically, Maguire hasn't been the sort of player that, he's had a great week. Now let's see what he does. He tends to have great weeks, then sort of falls away a bit again. So there's absolutely no guarantee that he'll have a strong rest of the season. But, as I say, I think most people that love this game will hope that's the case. Well, the final was one I wouldn't say I prolifically watched. I was at Tottenham v Manchester United today on this Sunday. Got there early and left there late type thing. So that was really my Sunday. But certainly followed it bits and pieces, watched the last 2 or 3 frames, which ended up being decisive. It was 3-1 to Selby. I know you'll have a lot more to say about it, I'm sure, early on. And then 4-4 after the first session. Anybody's end, obviously, first to 9, set up beautifully. First 4 frames shared to make it 6-6. But then it was kind of foot on the gas stuff from Selby. And from what I could gather, a lot of those frames are really interesting. I mean, both of them were pinching ones off the other. They should have won. I mean, I know a lot of people are talking about this clearance that Maguire made at 6-6, which sounded really significant. Maybe he wished he hadn't had the interval after that. But anyway, so he really responded like a champion after the interval. Breaks a 60-1 to 8 to make it 8-6, and then he got over the line. Maguire said, interviews just now, I've never seen a ball at 6-6. That's kind of how it was. But also, Mark quite generously, and truthfully, really talked about the run. I mean, there was quite a few almost 4 shots out of 6 I counted in maybe the last frame where it seemed to go really his way, the run. That happens often when you're ahead. I think Dennis Taylor, he'll often say the player ahead gets that run. But obviously a deserving winner at 9-6. But he sprinted for the line. But at 6-6, it was really anyone's, wasn't it?
Yeah, for sure, especially the way that Maguire made that clearance. That 71 was absolutely brilliant. And it had come off a remarkable miss from Selby. Very, very easy red that he missed. He was speaking about it in the Eurosport studio afterwards, but yeah, very surprising. But he wouldn't have thought that he wouldn't have been back to the table there. So yeah, it was brilliant for Maguire. And as you say, the intervals came at the wrong time for Stephen and at the right time for Mark, and he recomposed himself brilliantly, and then was great from there on in. Yeah, it was obviously sort of close all the way through, but it did feel like Maguire was always sort of just holding on to Selby, he kept getting level. He was never ahead, but there was clearly nothing in it. And yeah, Selby, there was lots of little bits. There weren't too many sort of outrageous, like, oh my God, how has he got away with that? But just little bits of run as it goes over the game. Um, and that doesn't decide the match really. Stephen has to pop the balls, but if you were sort of weighing up who had the run, it would certainly be more than 50% in Mark's favour in this one, as he said himself at the end in his interview. But yeah, still played brilliantly at the end, especially that turn in the penultimate frame was superb. Really sort of laying down a marker, like, okay, this is mine now. Um, so yeah, it was a good final. I think a lot of the predictions I saw, were clear. Selby was the favourite. Everyone thought Selby was the favourite. So the predictions were quite heavy wins for him, really. So it didn't feel like that. It was very tight until right at the end. So Maguire certainly didn't let himself down. Selby was just the better man of the night, as most people would have predicted.
Yeah, you summed that up very well. I think it was 70-30 in our poll on Talking Snooker, and that felt about right. I didn't feel like, that seems a bit funny. That was about what most people, you are 7 out of 10 people, I think they'd have gone for Selby. That's how it turned out. And yeah, 24th ranking event, back level with Neil Robertson now on that list of marvelous snooker players. He's right up there, of course. And when you get into the 20s, that's formidable stuff. And he's gone on to 24 now. Let's maybe wind the clock back a bit, as we often do, and go back. Well, we were last on air, weren't we? Just coming up to the last 16 stage. And, that was a night, I'm pretty sure, where Mark Selby got over the line at 1 a.m. I
Yeah,
think I
yeah.
sent the email to you. You had an early start, didn't you? So me being very much the night owl between us, I was up with that. And listen, miles from being alone. The snooker community all over the place was sort of, still with this. I mean, they started late, but yeah, it was, I think, was it 105, I think it was. And that's late. That's late sport, Phil.
Yeah, yeah, that was after we were on AA, wasn't it? I watched the end of the Brazil Nopan game, which was that night. But yeah, I was up at sort of 6:30, so I didn't stay up for the end of Selby Slesser. But yeah, they just had that late one in Germany as well, and that was the one where there was that picture of him just Slesser had gone for a toilet break mid-frame, and Selby looked like he was the only person left in the arena. That was another late one. So yeah, they've got a bit of form for that. But yeah, that other match, the Brazil match, was crazy that night because that's when he got back from needing 4 snookers. I think it was. He needed 4 to tie, and he won a frame from there. And I was very, very impressed because that shows how his mindset's changed. Because remember when he lost at the Crucible to Gilbert in the first round, he gave up needing 1 snooker. So very much head back in the game there. But yeah, late night stuff on that. Was that the Wednesday night?
I think it was the Wednesday night. I'd forgotten that World Championship. He wasn't well, was he? He
No.
was under the weather, but yeah, people thought that was quite funny. I think it sounds bad, and it sounds bad really, but I almost felt like partly couldn't wait to not be world champion, or couldn't wait to
I
just
said that to be fair. Yeah.
yeah, he pretty much said it. That's right. So it was kind of like that. But then last 16, Phil, I mean, we had a fascinating lineup. I did feel like it was sort of classic of the genre. Maybe not specifically this round, but this kind of round where, it went from this is really wide open. We made the wide open joke, didn't we, last time, to, oh, it's mostly heavyweights left. And we kind of knew that we'd be having a relatively heavyweight final. Of course, Maguire being a bit of a surprise, not been informed for a long time, and that's kind of how it was in the last 16 stage then. Well, Jackson Page had a good win. He beat Tom Ford 4-0. John Higgins beat One Sejun 4-0, break of 1-3-1 to clinch victory there from Higgins. Stephen Maguire, the eventual runner-up, beat Sanderson Lamb 4-2. It was Joe O'Connor 4 Matthew Stevens won. Great form from O'Connor in that one. Breaks of 99, 87, 113 and 82. Mark Selby coasted to a 4-0 win over Jamie Jones. It was Ali Carter 4, Ryan Day 1, and Luca Bassell 4, Pang Jung Soo 1. Jack Lasowski, well, he wasn't as good as his previous 2 rounds, but he was still pretty good. 1-2-3 and 1-3-1. So he got a win over Maxwell 4-2. I think it's only right and proper. I'll come back to you after that round, Phil. Lots going on there. And, well, we were saying it about Lasowski, everybody, it didn't happen. At one stage, I was thinking about, by the way, doing that thing I said about, he's brilliant but didn't turn up. But that wasn't the case. He didn't not turn up for that. He just lost. But lots of us were hoping he'd go further. But he only made it around further. But yeah, Joe O'Connor, I mean, you can't do anything against that. Stunning effort.
Oh yeah, he was very impressive. He's really just an excellent player. He had a sort of quiet first half of the season. He might be another one where the Championship League helped him find some form because he was looking good in Wales. And at that point Higgins was looking superb. He hadn't dropped a frame after
Yeah.
beating Llandudno 4-0, rattling them off. It was great. It was after that round I spoke to Jackson Page actually when he beat Tom Ford 4-0, which was a excellent result for him. And he's sort of quietly having the best season of his career so far. And he got to the final Championship League at the start of the season, didn't he? Another quarter final here. So it's good stuff. It's just sort of easy to forget how young he is. He's still only 23. So, excuse me. It's good progress. And he's heading in the right direction, although he only headed one more round to the quarter final. But losing to Luca Russell there's no disgrace. But I think it was then there was a few sort of surprise names getting to the last 16. Page sort of one of them, Jamie Jones, Sanderson Lamb, great runs. Most of them sort of tumbled out of at that round to the big hitters, but left a good quarter-final lineup. And when Lasowski and Maguire realised playing each other, that really sort of I love the look of that because I thought I can't remember last time I've seen that, and I think they only played once in the last 5 years or something. Two just very entertaining players, in my opinion. So yeah, and all the other ones they all sort of went. I suppose Lasowski was the one that didn't go with the favourite. The rest of them ended up going with the favourite, but looked an intriguing lineup.
It did. You're selling your own line short there. It's one of the last 7 which you revealed to us all. That was really surprising. They played that rarely. I mean, it's one of those classic ones where you look at it, you think, well, actually, no, now you think about it, I don't really remember them playing, but I think it was 18, then 1 in 21, and now this. So, I think we're all looking forward to it. In many ways, it did kind of deliver. Well, tell you what did deliver on so many levels really was a kind of extraordinary afternoon. Mark Selby, John Higgins. It started at midday and ended at 6 p.m. Important to say that does include not only an interval and a fairly long break for reasons of somebody being unwell in the crowd, but still it was an absolutely monstrous affair. I was thinking, had it been 7 p.m., it would have finished at 1 in the morning, which gives you an idea just how long it was. I mean, they were both a bit down on the game generally. They were both saying they dragged each other down at different times, or that's kind of the suggestion. I mean, I think John's first words were, "What time is it?" which is quite funny on an interview. It just went on and on. It's a funny. It did liken other snooker matters to me, but a bit bizarre. Sometimes I do tend to look at other sports. It reminded me of one of those very long tennis finals, like one of those maybe Australian finals where Messrs, Nadal, Djokovic, sometimes Murray were involved. Because it just took up so much of the day. I remember sort of just thinking about having a bit of lunch when it started, going about doing a bit of chores. I was up, getting stuff, boring old stuff at the shops, coming back, doing a bit of work, going about sorting out. It's still going on. It's brilliant stuff, following it. It's one of those. Yeah. I can imagine people coming at 4 or 5 o'clock. Oh, they're showing highlights. Brilliant. No, this is live play. I mean, I'm hamming it up a bit, but it was a monstrous match between two wonderful players where it was no quarter given. So many of the frames were very, very long. There was I thought, some magical safety and tactical play. I mean, I think one of the earlier frames, I think it was a respot, but loads of shots on the respot. And it went to 11 minutes. I mean, that set the tone. Selby got over the line with a 5-4 win. they ended up putting Brusella very sensible, actually. Sometimes people aren't sensible in sport. This was a sensible choice. They put Luca Brusella and Jackson Page on to ensure that the schedule was kept kind of on track. That didn't take very long. Brusella won that 5-2. And then there was, Maguire and Lasowski. Now, that's one of those where it's a bit unsatisfactory for me because I saw the second half of the match, so I never get the proper view. I saw the bit where Maguire played one that Lasowski didn't. I know Lasowski was really good early on, had a 147 attempt, and that was kind of the big moment of that match in frame four. Got to 64 but missed. Maguire took the frame, and it wasn't that Maguire never looked back from there because Lasowski won another frame. I think it was 3-3. But Maguire was maybe the likelier winner from there. He did well to win that, Maguire. It wasn't one of those Lasowski didn't turn up. He fell away a bit towards the end, and I'm sure he would say that. I mean, he banged the table on one occasion and showed three or four bits of frustration. So it wasn't Lasowski totally falling away, but he did miss his chances later on. But under pressure, that happens. The other one was Ali Carter 5, Joe O'Connor 3. So yeah, we thought Selby Higgins might be a no quarter given a fair field. I mean, it was that with a million knobs on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, it was super close as the scoreline suggests, and many of the frames were really close as well. Even that last one, I know Selby ended up making a big break in it, but Higgins was quite unlucky, wasn't he? I think was he played like a blue to middle, which was quite a brave hot that he pulled off, and he looked like he was bound to land on something but didn't. Um, so yeah, just another seems like the same old story for Higgins. Um, Very competitive, the very elite end, just coming out on the wrong side of it. He's lost to the eventual champion, the great Mark Selby. So it's no disgrace losing narrowly to him. That seems to have happened a lot. He was ahead, but it wasn't one of those ones where he's tossed away a big lead or anything. But um, yeah, it's one where he's going to have to go away and look at the positives again. Yeah, as I said, he hadn't dropped a frame until the quarterfinals, and then lost narrowly to Mark Selby. So it's a good week, but he'll be frustrated because I spoke to him after the first round, I think, on Zoom, and he was saying he he doesn't want to ever get to the point where he thinks I'm just turning up, like I'm here to win things. He's certainly playing well enough to win things, but he just is becoming longer and longer since he has won things. So it must be becoming harder and harder to tell yourself you are ready to win things, even though I think he still is. Is the game still there? So I hopefully he'll keep plugging away. But yeah, no, I mean, a slugfest, as you know, that wouldn't have been hard to predict that would be a ding dong battle, a long slobber knocker, as some people would say. And it lived up to expectations.
Indeed. And yeah, I mean, listen, it's broken record time. Maybe now I'm back to asking a Lazowski question. Maybe I shouldn't be asking a Lazowski question because there's plenty of other players that went out at that stage. But we'd love to see him go further, and maybe that's the way to say it. And he's getting closer and closer. I, I do, but again, I heard who was it? Selby was saying about Tepchaya and someone else about Luca, about how you wouldn't want to temper their game. He said it about Luca, but he mentioned Tepchaya as well. Luca sometimes does go for kind of rash shots, and he said in a way you wouldn't want them to not do that because that's part of their whole makeup and makes them special as snooker players. And in a similar vein, it's kind of what makes Lazowski special in a way. If you want the computer game stuff that he produces, then in a way you're going to have to also deal with that bit where he doesn't knuckle down. There are just times when he wish he'd knuckle down a bit more, but I know we've gone over this so many times. Sorry, I can see you sort of grimacing, saying, "Do you want to speak, or
Yeah, I mean,
am I being wrong to introduce Jack and not anyone else here?"
no, it's fair because I mean we're talking about him because he did well again. I mean, quarterfinals is a good run. I've noticed on the 1 year list, I think he's 16, so it's not like he's having a bad time. But yeah, I know exactly what Mark's saying by that. You can't get rid of the thing that makes them a great player. But I mean, Judd Trump's the ultimate example, isn't it, of someone who did temper his game to an extent, and it's gone very, very well for him. Judd Trump's an absolute freak, isn't he? One of the best players ever. So you can't really try and model your game necessarily on what Judd Trump's done, but he is someone who was all out attack and just dialed it down a notch. Not to get rid of his attacking skills, but he just turned himself into more of a all-round match player. So you would think that it is possible to do to some extent.
Yeah, no, that's a fair way of saying it. And as I said many times, the greatest player of all time, in most of our opinions, certainly mine, Ronnie O'Sullivan, can be a scrapper.
Yeah,
It's an underrated part of Ronnie. It'll always be underrated. People will never give it the credence it's due, in my opinion, because he's so great at so many things. But underrated scrapper, you need that as well. Semi-finals: Mark Selby 6, Luca Purcell 3. Well, Selby was 3-2 down. Actually, they got the job done well from there. Breaks of 1-3-1, 60, 67 and 74 for the Selby. Good to see Luca getting into the latter stages and looking much more like his old self, frankly. And Stephen Maguire 6, Ali Carter 4. That was kind of a curious one. I was at work during that, so I had a shift on, so I was sort of half watching it. Some of the frames are very interesting, very dramatic, actually. It was sort of short on quality, I thought, a lot of the time. I mean, 2 breaks in the 80s from Maguire. I mean, Carter made 1 century. That's not a lot, is it, when he played 10 frames? I mean, we had a bit of afters. I mean, Ali Carter got a little bit of chat about how angry he seemed at times. Maguire was certainly saying that. There was some talk in the commentary box as well, not very happy about the way Ali was dealing with the rest. So, yeah, I mean, listen, we know he can be a combustible character. I see him a lot more combustible than that, by the way.
yeah.
But yeah, I think you said it was going to be a feisty night. At times, it was a feisty night.
Yeah, but I think I was a bit surprised by the reaction because, like you say, I thought it was pretty standard Ali Carter, really. I didn't think it was out of the ordinary. But yeah, Alan McManus didn't like how he was putting the rest back. And obviously Maguire picked up on that as well because he noted that in his interview as well. And it was quite interesting comments from Maguire. He was sort of, because I guess he knows he has that reputation as well for being like that. And he it was almost quite like a moment of self-reflection. He was like, "Oh, is that what I'm like? I shouldn't be like that." It was quite interesting the way he said it. I think that's what he meant. And then Ali actually, I mean, I put those quotes on Twitter, and Ali replied to that tweet just saying that he was disappointed with those comments, and he said he'd wish Stephen well in the final. I think his words were, "It's not like he's whiter than white usually as well." Which I think that's why there was interesting comments from Stephen because they're very different characters, but they both got similar. Like I said, it was going to be a feisty match, and it was. Um, so yeah, no, there was interesting comments, but yeah, I hadn't thought it was out of the ordinary from Carter really, but obviously Maguire wouldn't say anything about that unless he'd really thought it and noticed it. So it's interesting. I did think Ali sort of he was obviously getting wound up and getting frustrated with himself, I think, more than anything. And there was a point where you really thought, you know, even when it was quite close, you thought he's not going to win it because he was really sort of getting down on himself. And I think I've mentioned it here before. It's hard with Ali because in some ways people talk about his like mindset and his greatest strength is like tenacity, such a fighter and stuff. But it's also sort of his greatest weakness when he's clearly so annoyed with himself. So it's hard to say how good his mindset is because it's arguably the best bit and the worst bit about his game. But it wasn't it didn't work out for him in that game. Because yeah, I mean, especially he was all right at the start. The second half, he was really struggling. But Maguire deserved to win, did well. And then yeah, that Selby game, I would say, there was a pause because Purcell had a migraine, and I mean, you never know how bad those are. But I mean, when I've had them, I couldn't be playing a snooker match. I mean, I can't even see when I have them. I've only had them 2 or 3 times, but they're absolutely brutal. The eyesight just goes almost completely. So I hope it can't have been that bad because he wouldn't have been able to hold his cue. But to get through the rest of the game when he's struggling with a migraine is impressive. So nightmare really because he'd been playing so well before that game. So then to be struck by that in a big semi-final is disappointing. But fair play for getting through it.
No, you're so right. And I remember I hadn't seen the very start, switching on. So there was a lot of package about, I think it might have been the Lee Walker one where he went around to different clubs and talked about Welsh Snooker. But this is a bit of a funny time. Oh, they've had some delay to the start. The crowd hasn't come in properly or whatever. Then of course, yeah, it was Lucas saying, "I'm really suffering." Mark was very sporting actually about that and said, as Mark would. By the way, that reminds me, I texted you about this. I mean, you expect it. Most of these guys are great. Mark's a lovely guy. Mark Selby was brilliant when there was a medical timeout on the
Yeah.
Friday match. In fact, he was really concerned that in fact he gave his water. I don't know if anyone else caught this because I can't remember if it was on the BBC or Eurosport coverage now, but it was all sort of quiet, and you could see Mark Selby say, "Take that over, please." That maybe some water needed over there. So I was really impressed by that. And also Mark saying he would have given Luca longer, really, but I think there was demands, what have you, of television, and it was, I don't know how long it was, maybe 20 minutes or something, but 15, 20 minutes. But yeah, no, that was, Luca came back, took what he needed to take, obviously got better from there, did well at the early part, but then, Selby just too good on the day. And yeah, it's interesting, Maguire and Cut. It's tempting to sort of say pot, kettle, and black a bit, isn't it? Although on that particular match, it was definitely Ali getting the. You're so right about Ali and about how it can be his Achilles heel, but also his greatest strength. It must be so hard. Chris Henry's obviously doing his best to do that and has been doing his best to try and get that balance. Because I tell you what, when he's got that balance and he's cutting out some more of that sort of critical stuff and that stuff he does, which I really get, because I think I can't believe there's many humans that don't get this. But Ali's one of the. There a lot of them are quite like this. They're really bad at forgetting the flukes that they get and really down on the other ones getting flukes. And quite a lot of players are like this. Actually, I think we probably all know most of them who they are. But yeah, it's almost like, oh, how dare that guy get a fluke? Well, you got a fluke 2 minutes ago, and it's a bit like that. But listen, you never want Ali to cut that out. I know Ali Carter's a Marmite figure. I think Ali Carter going for the big prizes is one of the most compelling sights in the game, and I think I always have done. I wish he'd have another big Crucible run. It hasn't happened for quite some time. I always think it's possibly on the cards. It hasn't happened. But listen, it was a night of drama without being a lot of quality. But we know this sport. We don't always need to be great quality to give us drama. And the final, Phil, as we've been saying, Mark Selby 9. Stephen Maguire 6. Selby winning the title. Congratulations to him. TV coverage, as you often rightly say, it's nice when we had the two, BBC Wales and Eurosport, a whole host of voices we heard, and it was all the better for it. We enjoyed one of the BBC presenters. Listen, we all make mistakes, but was absolutely insistent there was a player from Japan in the tournament. I thought, well, I'm not quite sure, what they were thinking of there, but listen.
I missed that.
Yeah, good voices across the board, enjoyable, and let's say, on a sad note, a reflective note, we lost, didn't we, 2 titans in Reardon and Terry Griffiths, and there were very appropriate and very well done tributes in the arena and also on the BBC. Lovely package. I didn't see it myself because I was at Tottenham, but I've seen some of it on the iPlayer before we came on air. I want to see the rest of it. Sean Murphy, Dennis Taylor, others on there. Really good tributes. So that's important to say, isn't it, Phil? We lost. Listen, to lose one of those guys, to lose them both so, in so recent time, since the last Welsh Open, means they're rightly remembered. And, they'll be remembered for generations to come in this sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And, they're such massive figures in the game. It's good that there were lots of tributes when the news came through. It's good it carried on. Hopefully there'll be more at the World Championship. They deserve plenty of recognition. It was really nicely done there. In the arena as well, the minute's applause was great. So yeah, well done to everyone involved in that. Was beautifully done.
It was, and listen, we don't want to do a marathon. I know you're feeling a bit under the weather, so you're battling through. I think you might be passing it over to me through the airways. I'm starting to feel. I'm surprised hypothermia didn't get me at Tottenham. Never mind anything else. Bloody freezing. Boots may be getting some good business out of us in the coming days, Phil, but we'll see. But I think overall, listen, maybe a word about the Welsh to finish and the home nations. I'm a fan of the home nations, me. I don't know what the future holds for them, but they're not the most high profile. But I always feel satisfied after a good home nations week. They just please me. I like the sort of low key, but give you high moments. That's kind of what I'd say about them, or lower key compared to others. And yeah, I thought it was a good week. A lot of people that I know went and spoke very well about the place generally. It's obviously a lovely, lovely place, and the crowd big from the word go. I heard Ken Doherty on television tonight saying Monday morning crowds are coming through, and I like that. And it makes a difference on telly. I don't know whether of us were there it makes a difference on the telly. If the crowd's big, the arena looks full, it makes it all seem much more significant. And as someone else I know in snooker used the last couple of days, the word proper. I know we love that as journalists and as observers. It made it look proper.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really successful there. Well, I know we've spoken before about how South Wales deserves to hopefully would get another one as well because Wales can certainly hold two tournaments. But yeah, Llandudno looks just great. I mean, I very nearly went this time and nearly took the family, which annoyed I didn't really because it just looks so nice. So a lot of the Great Orme, this
Mm,
walk you can do, looks beautiful.
mm.
Um, and I can't remember what the beach is called now, where you can go see seals, which it looks delightful. And yeah, the crowd's great. Um, yeah, I think I've said before on the home nations. They've become because there've been more and more. China's come back and these other big tournaments have emerged. That the home nation have become sort of one above the Championship League or something, but one of the lowest key on the calendar. But if they're you know air quotes worst tournaments on the calendar, then the tour's just doing really well because they're great tournaments. 100 grand the winner. They've got near enough everyone in, not quite, but not far off. Plenty of good players, and they're really enjoyable weeks. So I think the fact that these have become sort of some of the lesser relatives of the tour events, it just shows what a good state the sport's in general because they're great tournaments. And the fact that there's plenty bigger tournaments than them is just good news.
Great way to finish. And we should say you are listening here to the Talking Snooker podcast with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Mark Selby celebrating another ranking victory then with success at the Welsh Open. The road show goes on and it's back to China. The World Open beginning next Sunday at the Yushan Sports Centre in Yushan. A tournament that wasn't held for 4 years actually because of I was thinking it was a few, it was four, quite a lot really, because of the COVID pandemic. And when it returned last year, it was Judd Trump that won the title, beating Ding Junhui in the final. Well, we're looking forward to it. Of course we are. That, from our point of view, it will be a lot of snooker over breakfast, snooker at lunchtime. We have listeners from the Far East. For you, it'll be prime time, of course. And I've scribbled down a few matches, not absolutely loads. If you want to see the full list, go to snooker.org or WST. I like the look of Shang and Stan Moody. They played two best of sevens last year, actually. Both of those went to deciders. They won one each. Mark Selby, the man who's just entered the winner's circle, has got Liu Hong Yu. And Kyron Wilson, the world champion, and another player of the season contender, most certainly, has got Hamad Mia. I like it that it's Ricky Walden, Ryan Day. We said we couldn't split them at the German Masters. What happened was that, if you remember, Walden went 10-9 up in the head-to-head. Not everyone counts everything. This is on the snooker Q Tracker site that does count everything. Yeah, Walden getting a 5-3 win in Germany. You couldn't predict this one again. Wu Yiz playing Jackson Page, and Hossein Vafai's got one Sijun. Some guy, Ronnie O'Sullivan, still on the schedule as well, Phil, but maybe we'll hold fire on that.
Well, we'll see. We never know. He just had to turn up for the Chinese ones, doesn't he? So maybe wouldn't like to predict. I mean, it got to the point where we did think he was playing in Wales, and he put that statement out, didn't he? Just sort of apologising, um, but just that it felt that he couldn't play. So we'll see. Maybe he will play. We don't know, but yeah, no. Well, this is another big one because it turned out that the Welsh was the last qualifier for the Grand Prix, isn't it? But now the World Open is still a qualifier for the Players Championship. So it does mean that it's probably quite an unlikely scenario. But if someone who's not in the Grand Prix could have a banging week in the World Open, then they could make it to the Players. But it doesn't seem like something that's likely to happen. But the option's there. Um, yeah, the other one I noticed was Luca Brazil against Tianpeng Fei because Luca there, I was really impressed with Luca that week. I think he's really sort of improving quite substantially from, he was at quite a low point, to be fair, to improve from in most of 2024. But he's looking really good. And Tianpeng Fei, who's been on the tour for quite a while now, he's well off the cut-off to lose his tour card. So he needs some results. And, you would expect him to struggle to get one against an informed Brassel. But yeah, there's another one. Pang Junzhu, Anthony McGill's a nice first
Yep.
rounder there as well. But yeah, plenty to look forward to. 175 grand the winner, so big chances to turn rankings around late in the season.
I'm glad you mentioned the Ronnie O'Sullivan lie. I didn't have that scribbled down anywhere, so that was well remembered. What I liked is I saw one or two nice judges of the game make the point that the reaction was very good, certainly to his tweet, more positive than negative. It's never going to be, you know, completely to our satisfaction, but Ronnie pointing out that sometimes he pulls out at the last minute, suggesting because he's not totally content, and and that because as you pointed out last time, it's the timing that's often the contentious thing. Ronnie's saying, well, sometimes I will pull out last minute, and I thought the reaction was pretty good, positive generally, and we do want to see him back. I saw even in the last week or two a couple of messages from, and listen, I generally love Ronnie. I mean, I've been critical of him at different times. I know over the years, but you know, I think Snooker will be fine without him. Said it in the column recently, but I also share those sentiments. Love to see him soon. Love to see him play. There's no one quite like him, and if he, well, knowing Ronnie, he sort of he might give us a grandstand finish of the season. He's that kind of character, of course. But yeah, I was pleased generally with the reaction to that. Underneath his tweet specifically, most people say, "Take your time, Ronnie. As much time as you want. Mental health comes first, and can't wait to see him back, eh?"
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think people in general, if people be saying he's struggling with mental health, then you like to think that people will treat someone kindly who's admitting that they're going through that. It's quite hard to understand with it. Yeah, I think he just, he talks about this stage fright thing. It's quite hard for people who are not in his situation to get their head around that, really. But you just got to take him at face value as much as possible. Um, he does want to play. But he said at the Masters that he intends to carry on playing. Um, I, I believe him in that, and I think he will. Yeah, we'll see him again this season. I'd be very confident in that. When that is, we'll see. I would expect him to play in Hong Kong. But again, that's based on no inside info. That's just what I would expect. Um, and yeah, of course we're going to see him. You know, he's a bit of a Marmite character as well for a lot of people. He's more popular than not popular, but some people are not fans. But anyone who has any passing interest in the actual game of snooker likes watching Ronnie O'Sullivan play snooker. There's no doubt about that. So if he can come back in something like any kind of form, then it's a plus for the sport.
Absolutely, and we look forward to that return at some stage soon, and we look forward to the World Open. Enjoy the tournament, everybody. When we're next on air, we'll update you on the early stages of that tournament, and then of course do our usual review job further down the line. But I think more than any other business time, Tessa Davidson will be with us in our next episode. All being well, it'll be next Tuesday. Getting the old paper diary out, Phil, and just to confirm, that will be on the 25th, all being well. Looking forward to that, aren't we? Do get your questions in, please. Interesting character, Tessa. As you mentioned, Phil, last time, big break from the game. Was very successful in her first stint of playing, and then phenomenally successful with the old seniors titles since she's returned back, and doing very well in the main events as well on the tour. So, and listen, it goes without saying that Tessa will have some fascinating thoughts on women's snooker generally, and without wishing to put words in her mouth or prejudge it at all, I'm sure some of the difficulties that female players face in this sport, unfortunately. So, whatever your question for Tessa, please do get it into us. talkingsnooker@yahoo.com or tweet us at Talking Snooker. And apart from that, for me, I've got a new Sporting Life column which should be available next Monday, so keep an eye out for that. That's before we're next on air, so I will I hope you get a chance to look at that. That'll be on the Sporting Life site. I know you've been doing lots of work as ever, Phil, and feel free to plug away.
Well, yeah, we'll see. So we've got a week till the World Open now, so I'll be chatting to a few people before everyone goes off to Yushan. Notoriously difficult place to get to Yushan. You always hear of the really tricky travel arrangements people have got to get over there. But then it's very international, still part of the calendar now. After a little bit in the UK, we've got Yushan now in Hong Kong, and of course the big Q Tour playoffs in Turkey, which are vital. So and to Telford, of course. So yeah, well, we're traveling all over the place. But yeah, no, I'll be chatting to a few people before the World Open, so keep an eye out for that stuff. And then it's a big tournament there, really big. Um, Judd won it last year against Ding Junhui. He won it the previous time in 2019 against Step Chaya, memorable final. So yeah, no, plenty to look forward to.
Yeah, definitely. And we shall enjoy all that, of course, and we can't wait to have Tessa with us next time. A bit of a word about other sport then. Well, as you were in the Premier League, both Arsenal and Liverpool winning this weekend. As I say, I was at Tottenham v Manchester United. Bit of a video nasty game, Phil. I don't think either of those sides are really anywhere near where they should be. I mean, it started at 15th v 14th. Obviously, Tottenham winning 1-0. Protests against the owners there, and not much happiness from a United point of view either. Extraordinary bench. Yeah, as you pointed out, 382 appearances on the Manchester United bench today, and 381 of them from Victor Lindelof. So that was quite a bench. But do you know my favourite line from Sport, Phil, since we were last on air? By a mile, by an absolute mile, one of my favourites of the year so far. Wigan against Lee on the opening night of the Super League, 0-0. I was texting everyone I know and quite a few people I didn't know. I was telling everyone, have you heard the news that it was 0-0? I think it was the first 0-0 draw in the top flight since 1974. And there was actually a very famous 0-0 draw, I think, also in 74 in the Floodlit Trophy. There was a TV game. So it does happen, but obviously unbelievably rarely. They've obviously gone down the American route so much now that there was a golden point. So Lee actually won it 1-0 with that golden point in the extra time. But 0-0 in a game of rugby league, couldn't make it up. That's something else, Phil, isn't it? With these guys bashing back forth. Good night for defence.
Yeah, no, remarkable. I don't follow the sport particularly closely, but I know how mad that is. Um, yeah, I mean, very, very bizarre. But yeah, like you say, the defensive coaches will be getting their bonuses, surely. Very impressive on their point. Um, yeah, elsewhere, I mean, the Premier League darts, there was Littler was very good to win that against Humphreys, but I don't know if you saw any of that. But that was sort of marred quite badly by whistling in the crowd, which was on people's throw. It was really sort of it's hard to do much about in those enormous venues. The crowd's so big, hard to pinpoint who it is. But that is one thing that our snooker isn't sort of plagued by too much, or at all really, in the normal snooker atmosphere. But even in the shootout, there is silly shouting out there, but people aren't intentionally trying to put people off, which was the case during this. And it's just a remarkable thing to. Why have you paid for a ticket to go to a sporting event and try and ruin it? Just baffling, really. But yeah, glad that we don't have to put up with that too much because it was not fun to watch.
No, I had kind of that had slipped my mind, but now you think about it, they put a statement out, didn't they, the PDC? Because I saw some people cynically saying it's a bit late for it now, but they were saying, we have certain sort of rules. But I mean, listen, I've been quite outspoken. It hasn't annoyed me quite so much the last couple of years at Ali Pad. I don't know why. I think maybe because I went to that first Littler final and had a really good night, and generally I just put it in my mind to try and just focus on the darts. But I think some of the behaviour is pretty bad. As you rightly say, it's worse before Christmas when it's
Mm.
the not look at me, that's a bit rude, but the real sort of panto office party thing. I think it's more darts fans later on. But I mean, my personal view is they let that sport get a bit out of control for a long time with crowds, really. So it will come to bite them occasionally. But listen, they know that it's also been phenomenally successful, and those incredible atmospheres are part of it. So it's a hard one to sort of to judge exactly. But yeah, those Premier League nights as well, they just get. I can't quite get my head around that because I sort of know it's sort of big and I know it's sort of the biggest stars, but I suppose there's part of me that thinks, is it really that big? But those crowds seem to think it's that big. It's terrific.
Well, yeah, that's just the marketing job they've done because I think the tournament itself word this correctly. I mean, it's not my favorite tournament by a long stretch. I feel like it just doesn't mean a lot for most of it. And then, I mean, the finals night, brilliant when the trophy's handed out, but all these weeks and weeks and weeks, and then just somewhere towards the end, you think, okay, well, this starts to mean something now. Um, but you get individual, like amazing bits, like Littler versus MVG in the first week when MVG won was superb game. So you get good darts, but it's hard to sort of feel that invested in it just by the incredibly drawn out format, but it makes them so much money by selling out these massive arenas every week. And obviously it's on Sky, that great deal they've signed recently. So it's big, big business. And snooker would do very well to have something like that to fill the coffers as a tournament, as a sporting interest. That's not one of the better ones for me.
No, that's kind of. I mean, I'm an outsider compared to you. You're very much inside, so that's kind of always my vote. Not dissimilar to the snooker Premier League they used to have in terms of
Yeah.
format and style and night of the event. But yeah, it's always sort of one more on this. It's not a darts podcast. It always sort of slightly annoys me during the World Final and around that time. It's like, who's going to play in the Premier League? I was like, what's a World Final going on? What the hell are you talking about that for? That's like. I know people have similar complaints, and maybe they're having it a bit towards me because I still, in an old-fashioned way, quite like sports personality. I know you think it's kind of a load of old nonsense, and a lot of people do, but it's like when I do accept it's a bit ludicrous sometimes when someone's just won the Olympic Games, and how are they going to get on a sports person? Well, I just won a gold medal. That's probably the most important thing. But this is the darts version of that for me. It's like, yeah, who's going to get in the Premier League? I don't bloody care. Littler's about to go for the world title.
Yeah, they sort of it's double-edged sword, isn't it? Because obviously it sells the Premier League by talking about it when it's its most popular during the Worlds. But yeah, it does become too much of a chat like all the way through all the way through the World Championship. Um, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I thought sports personality. I mean, my issue with it is just that, you know, how do you compare these things? And it was at its most stark this last one, I thought. How are you comparing Keely Hodgkinson to Luke Littler? I mean, they could be two more different sports, could they? Is that which one's better? I mean, obviously, I think she rightfully won, but it's apples and oranges at its most most extreme.
Yeah, I think you'd say the Olympic Games is bigger than the World Darts Championship, wouldn't you? That would be
I
my thing
would,
on
but it's
that.
just a
Yeah,
silly thing to compare to, isn't it? It's just like
yeah,
what? How are you supposed to do that?
yeah. Fair point. Fair point. Well, on that sports personality note, you want good bit of sports personality chat in February. I like that. How obtuse. Let's go and say well done to Mark Selby, a winner again, and yeah, so you can't keep a good man down. Also, well done to Stephen Maguire getting to the final, and everyone for putting on a smashing Welsh Open tournament and the home nation's generally big success. I'll salute you and say I look forward to your company next time with Tessa Davidson, and let's all keep enjoying our snooker until then.
Absolutely, yeah. Hope everyone enjoyed the Welsh Open. I'm sure you did. Saw a lot of people on social media who were there. So get us your thoughts in about how much you enjoyed it or what could be better. Reviews of the tournament. Let us know. And thanks for listening. We'll speak to you very soon.
Yeah, we've got a very empty email box, actually. I'm glad you said that. It's tumbleweed. So if anyone did go, talking snooker at yahoo.com or tweet us at talking snooker. Speak to you next time, folks. Thanks for your company as ever. And for now, from your old friends, Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf, cheerio.